Hello and welcome to Kickoff with Casey. My name's Casey Patrick, and we're just going to get right on into it. Last week was not the most star-studded week, I guess you could call it, for matchups. There weren't really a lot of top-tier grade A matchups, and quite frankly, the ones that we did get were a little bit boring. So I'm gonna spend more of this episode talking about the upcoming week. There were a few great games. I don't want to say great. I don't want to overuse that word. There were a few decent games from last week. In fact, we had the top 25 matchup between Oklahoma and Missouri. Oklahoma pulling that one out, and of course Oregon taking down USC. So we're going to talk about Oregon taking down USC. We're going to talk about Oklahoma's D holding off Missouri, only giving up 6 points. And then BYU continues their march to the CFP with a 26-14 win over Cincinnati. We're going to get into all that and more. Stay right here. We'll start with the Oregon game. I was able to watch, probably a few drives of it before the Tennessee-Florida game, of course, which we'll get into later on. I've got a lot to talk about with that game. But it came on like 6:30. And, of course, ESPN says 6:30, but they don't kick off till like 8. That's an exaggeration. It was closer to 7. But regardless, they've been lying to us about these kickoff times. But I knew I had a lot of the afternoon to catch some football stuff. That morning, I was really busy doing some personal stuff, helping out my uncle, moving some stuff around. So when I finally got to a couch over at Eric's house, which, I done told you guys, it's where I go on Saturdays to watch football. I got over there. It was probably 3, 4-ish or whatever. And I got over there, and we were able to watch a little bit of the USC-Oregon game. Watched a little bit of the Oklahoma-Missouri game, and it was boring. But to be fair, that's Oklahoma football. Brent Venables said it best. He said it wasn't necessarily a pretty win, but it doesn't have to be pretty. It's football, and that's true. It's not a beauty contest. I'm pretty sure that those were the exact words he used. It's not a beauty contest. And he's right. But if you're watching the game and you're not necessarily an Oklahoma fan or even a Missouri fan, it gets boring pretty quick. And if you're a Missouri fan, it was probably boring. But other than that, there just really wasn't a whole lot going on. I think that the Oregon game and the Oklahoma game were the only two games that were really worth watching. Now, there were some other close games. There was another SEC game that I cannot bring to my mind right now. It was an early game. We were watching it. Maybe it was that Texas-Arkansas game. I think that's what it was, Texas-Arkansas, which honestly was kind of fun. Arkansas is one of the few teams in the country that averages 30 points a game and gives up 30 points a game. Taylor Green went out early with, I don't want to say early, sometime in the second half. He came down with an injury. They got a backup, KJ Jackson, who will give you flashbacks to KJ Jefferson. He's not quite that size, but the same name, close to the same name. Jackson's left-handed. He come in and he was able to make some plays. I think Arkansas's offense continues to show that it's a good offense. However, like I said, they give up over 30 points a game. You may have heard that car just honk outside. I don't know what's going on outside. I don't know. But that Arkansas-Texas game was kind of fun to watch there for a minute until Texas really just kind of flexed its muscles. I know Arch Manning, I think he ended up running for a touchdown, throwing a touchdown. He also caught a touchdown. That double pass or the backwards throw pass to Manning, you could see it coming from a mile away. But to give Arch all the credit in the world, he went up and made a nice play on that ball. It was not a well thrown ball. Of course, it's a receiver throwing the ball, or maybe even a tight end. But not the best throw. But Arch showing off some athleticism, going up, getting that pass, and bringing it down. Texas scoring 52 points. You kind of assume a Sarkisian-led offense will do that, especially against Arkansas, who has not had a great defense all year long. But that game was kind of fun to watch. I think I watched maybe 5 minutes, even less than that, of the Vanderbilt-Kentucky game. And Kentucky fans, look, I'm not going to talk trash to you guys. That's not what this is about. But y'all know how bad your team is. I told y'all last week, my lock of the week was Vanderbilt. Because they were only, when I looked at it, they were only 10-point favorites. And if you got in on that gravy train, congratulations. There was at one point I looked down at the scoreboard and on the bottom of the screen there, and Vanderbilt was up 51-10. And then I think they ended up taking those points back. But Vanderbilt did go on to win 45-17. So I saw that coming. I don't know if you did. But if you listened to me last week and put a few dollars on Vanderbilt, congratulations. You made a few dollars. So I was able, but I didn't watch much of that game. Because it was, I mean, as soon as you turned it on, it was just, you could tell. Vanderbilt had not really started to build its lead yet, but you could tell Vanderbilt was just far and away better than Kentucky, which is kind of a crazy thing to say out loud. I'll be honest. The fact that I just said Vanderbilt's a lot better than Kentucky out loud is kind of wild to me. And, of course, you know, big matchup with Vanderbilt and Tennessee coming up this weekend. We're going to get into that, but later. I'm going to make you guys sit around and watch it, you know, just like other TV shows. Save the good stuff for the end. But, honestly, next week with all the matchups and stuff that we have coming, the higher quality product of my show is towards the end of this episode because, like I said, most of y'all watched last Saturday. If you're a Tennessee fan, congratulations. You got to see an awesome first half against Florida. Other than that, if your team won, congrats. If your team didn't, sorry. But for the most part, just as a general football fan, last Saturday was not one of the best Saturdays we've ever had. And that kind of leads into this other point that I wanted to bring up. It was SEC Cupcake Week. I know Dan Lanning made a comment, something about, Oregon doesn't play teams like that or whatever, especially this late in the season. And he's right. Sure, whatever. A lot of SEC teams did have. I mean, Samford was on somebody's schedule this week. Georgia beat Charlotte 35-3. I thought Georgia should have put up 70 on Charlotte. Notre Dame put up 70 on Syracuse. I know it's not SEC, but I was thinking of the number and wanted to say it. Notre Dame flexed their muscles. I've told you, all of you, multiple times, I don't care for Notre Dame. I think they've been given an easy road since the beginning of college football, basically. Not just this year, forever. And I've talked down on them this year. I like Coach Freeman. I think Marcus is his first name. I really do like him. But other than Jeremiah Love, I wasn't really sure what to think of that team. They were up 49-0 like 17 minutes into the game the other day against Syracuse. Syracuse isn't good. We know that. Everybody knows that. One of the worst defenses in the country. But at the same time, Notre Dame's still showing that they deserve to be top 10. And I think they were 9th going into last week. Yeah, 9th. So it was a little bit of a cupcake week. Vandy slaughtered Kentucky. Kentucky is not necessarily a cupcake, but this year it has been a really rough year on the Wildcats. And it just seemed like far and away, maybe not, I mean, obviously not from Missouri or Arkansas, but there were a lot of teams this week that played lesser opponents. I don't know if that bothers me. I think it should be at the beginning of the year. I think everybody should get a cupcake to begin the season. When I play college football, the video game, I haven't played it in a long time because I don't really enjoy this year's version of the game. But regardless, whenever I'm doing the franchise or dynasty is what it's called in that game, whenever I'm doing the dynasty and they let you set up your schedule, I like to play the first game against FCS, some small school or maybe, Temple or Temple. I hate to say Temple. They're not like necessarily a super small school, but y'all get what I mean. And I like to schedule cupcakes, but I think they should be earlier in the year. It's a glorified preseason game, unless you're Michigan against App State in 2007. I think it was 2007. But I think personally, again, me, if I was a coach, I don't have anything against playing the smaller schools. I don't know why anybody else would have anything against them. Now, I will say that Dan Lanning bringing this up makes sense because it is towards the end of the year. I think it's kind of goofy that some teams did get to play Charlotte and Samford this week. Regardless, the week's over with. It was going to be a boring week, no matter what way you looked at it. But we got through it. It's okay. And I think it really sets up for this week, which is awesome, because this week is one of the best weeks all year long. And you can say what you want to about bowl weeks and the college football playoffs. This is the best week of college football every year, in my personal opinion. In my not so humble personal opinion, it is the best week of football. And I think a lot of y'all agree with that just because of the rivalry games. I mean, this Friday I think I've got five games written down here. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like 6 or 7 maybe. But this is the best week of football. And I think not only is it rivalry week, I think you've got some games where they could end up being close. Alabama's only a 6.5-point favorite over Auburn. Only. And that's crazy. That's not foreshadowing. That's not my lock of the week. There's something about Alabama and Auburn. You cannot pick the winner of that game. It doesn't matter how good or bad the other one is. However, I do have a lock of the week, and I'm pretty confident on this one. I hope my numbers are right. I saw the numbers when I looked at, but we will get into that in due time. I don't want to go too fast. We're going to talk about just a few more things here before we take the first commercial break. But one thing I think is really interesting, I saw a tweet. This may have been yesterday or possibly the day before. I saw a tweet that somebody said, of course, it's a Utah fan. And he said, nobody wants to watch a third-loss team or a 3-loss SEC team over a 2-loss a 2-loss Utah or a 1-loss BYU. And I just think that statement is wrong. You, if you're watching this as a Utah fan, you don't want to watch a 3-loss SEC team get in over Utah or BYU. But it would be really hard for anybody to come in here and argue with me right now that Utah or BYU is better than some of the 3-loss teams in the SEC. And I'm not talking about Tennessee. I know I'm wearing the shirt. I know I'm a Tennessee fan. I'm not talking about Tennessee. There are other 3-loss teams in the conference that, when it's all said and done, I personally believe they're better than Utah or BYU. BYU might be really good. I don't know. Utah might be really good. And I say I don't know because look at the schedules. Look at what these guys play. Have y'all seen Ohio State's schedule? That opening week against Texas was awesome. After that, they've played ITT Tech and Midwestern State University for the blind. I mean, it's a lot of these other teams. And listen, if you're not an SEC fan and you're tired of the same old blah, blah, blah that SEC people talk about, I get it. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to like it. But it's my personal opinion, again, not so humble, it's my personal opinion that the SEC gauntlet is harder than any other conference. I know that Ohio State won the national championship last year. You could argue that conference was better than the SEC last year. I mean, consistently, year in and year out, the best football is played in the Southeastern Conference. And I don't even think that's a wild take. I don't think that's a hot take. I don't care how many wins or losses the top half of the SEC ends up with. I think the top half of the SEC is better than the top half of every other conference in the country. Is the Big Ten close? Sure. Close is a relative word. It depends on how close you mean, in my personal opinion. Oregon's really good. Ohio State's really good. Michigan's not bad. Penn State fell off a cliff. There are a few other teams that, maybe I could talk about them. Let's see, what do we got? Top 25. Who cares? I'm not even going to talk about it. We are going to take our first break, though. So please don't go anywhere. When you get back, we're going to talk a little bit of the Tennessee-Florida game. We're also going to talk about some of the Friday night games that are coming up. So make sure and don't go anywhere.
He shoots, and he scores!
just got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
All right, welcome back. We're going to do, I think I'm going to talk about the Tennessee-Florida game first, and then we'll do the top 25 rundown. There's a lot I wanted to say about the Tennessee game. First of all, congratulations, UT Volunteer fans. I don't mean to talk to myself, but honestly, it's the first time since 2003 that they've won in the Swamp. That was George Bush Jr.'s first, what was it? That was the first time he was president. Yeah, he won it in 2000. I was going to make a joke. It was his first term as president. I messed up the joke. But that's how long ago it was. The iPhone was not out yet last time Tennessee beat Florida in Florida. Casey Clausen was the last one to do it. I remember watching that game on television. I'm pretty sure he hit, I forget the receiver's name. I don't think it was Swain. No, it was for Swain. He hit somebody for a Hail Mary right before half. I remember that was the coolest thing ever. But 2003, I mean, it's not that long ago, but it's almost like, man, you have to feel like you watch those highlights in black and white. That's how long ago that was. And Tennessee going down there, I was kind of nervous. As a Tennessee fan, I was more nervous about beating Florida at Florida than I was beating Vanderbilt in Knoxville next week, if that tells you what I think. Now, again, Tennessee-Vanderbilt plays 2:30 on Saturday. Come around 7 o'clock on Saturday, I may look like an absolute buffoon. And sometimes I do. I'm not arguing that. But I was actually kind of somewhat nervous for that game. It's the battered Vol syndrome. BVS is what people call it. You just can't. I know what Tennessee looked like all year. I know what I thought about them all year. They've played much better than I expected them to. But going into the Swamp, it's hard to have a whole lot of confidence when you haven't won there in 22 years. I have 3 siblings that were not born the last time Tennessee beat Florida in Florida. So it's hard to be confident going in there. Now, I will say, I think the halftime lead was 31-0, and Tennessee ended up winning 31-11. I realize that once you get a big enough lead, you want to run out the clock and get the game over with. There is a part of me, and excuse me, Florida fans, I'm sure you understand it, but there's a part of me as a Tennessee fan, I wanted to keep the foot on the pedal. And not for the whole, you hear this a lot, but like, oh, that's a losing mentality, you take your foot off the gas, stuff like that. I'm not saying it for that. I wanted to score 70 points against Florida. And it looked like the Volunteers could have done it. And the whole second half just looked like it was dedicated to just getting it over with. And maybe when you haven't won for 22 years in a place, that's how you feel. But some of those losses to Florida were absolutely embarrassing. And not that second half against Florida this past Saturday, kind of embarrassing, because I felt like Tennessee had a real opportunity to take a little bit of revenge out on Florida. There was a lot of nonsense over the last, I've been alive for 33 years. I've had enough of Florida nonsense since then. And there was a part of me that, like, I think after that kid missed the field goal for Florida, I remember, like, I punched Eric. And I was like, let's go. Because it felt like it was our opportunity. I keep saying our. I obviously don't play. But it's hard not to say us when you're talking about your team. I'm not going to bark at you if you do it. I'm going to do it. I wanted us to just trample over Florida. I wanted to beat them 70-0. And when they scored there in the second half and they put a few points on the board, I don't ever think I was necessarily worried that Florida was going to come back and win. But there was a part of me that was kind of disgusted with the fact that Tennessee looked like they were ready to go. It's like, oh, well, we played 30 minutes of good football. We'll get the W and get out of here. And again, maybe after 22 years, that's what you do. I'm not a football coach. But I will say I'm a bowling coach. For those of y'all that don't know that, I coach the Creekwood. I'm one of the assistant coaches for the Creekwood bowling team. And sometimes when we go up against a team that, maybe I don't like the way they've conducted themselves, maybe they act a certain way, I leave my starters out there a little bit longer. Now, I like to get the backups in because those guys and girls deserve the opportunity to show off what they've worked on. They work just as hard at practice. They should get the chance too. So I get the idea of getting backups in from Heupel's perspective. But it was boring. And I felt like, just like when I have the opportunity to send a message to another team, Josh Heupel missed out on an opportunity to send out a message to Florida and send out a message to Tennessee and recruits coming in. Urban Meyer never took his foot off the gas against us. When Dan Mullen beat us, he didn't take his foot off the gas. It was like we lost some of those games to Florida 40-10, and I guess 31-11 is not that far off, but that whole second half, again, 22 years without a win, you do what you can to get a win, but that whole second half just felt like a really big missed opportunity. And even Eric said it after the game. He was like, I'm not nearly as joyful for a 20-point win over Florida. And I said, yeah, because the whole second half was boring. It was boring. I wanted to see Tennessee step on Florida's throat, because that's what Tennessee fans deserved. The last God knows how many years of watching really, really bad Florida teams beat us, I wanted to see more than what I saw. And I didn't. But I got to see an awesome first half, and Tennessee did win. I wanted to get that all off my chest. I know that's a lot, but man, it just... And I think there may be some other Tennessee fans out there that kind of feel the way I do. Hey, great, we got to win. Let's worry about Vanderbilt. Let's go into this final week. Let's get a W and give ourselves a chance at the playoff. I don't think Tennessee should be in the playoff, but that's kind of the consensus thought among Tennessee fans. And I get that. I'm not necessarily mad at Heupel. I'm not mad at the University of Tennessee. I'm just a little bit discouraged because I felt like, Florida didn't really wave the white flag. They didn't have their trainer pulling them out. They were still in the ring, and the ref hadn't ended the fight yet. Take a few swings. Hit them hard. You got your opportunity, and you didn't. You didn't swing hard in the second half. And I think they threw one ball really like downfield, and Aguilar overthrew Brazel, the corner, and the safety. Well, that's not true. I think the safety ended up making contact with the ball, but they threw one ball downfield. Morris, the freshman running back, was able to come in and played well, which was important because Lewis was out. But, again, just felt like a missed opportunity. But, top 25 rundown. We're going to do that real quick and then go to our final commercial. Ohio State with a 42-9 win over Rutgers. Indiana was on a bye. A&M, that was a team that played Samford, beat the crap out of them, 48-0. Georgia, 35-3 over Charlotte. I felt like Georgia should have scored more points. Maybe I'm wrong there. Georgia fans, I think you agree with me. If you do, let me know. I really felt like Georgia should have did more. Maybe Charlotte's not that bad. I don't know. I didn't watch a down of that game. Oregon, we talked about beating USC 42-27. Oklahoma, we talked about beating Missouri 17-6. Talked about Notre Dame taking down Syracuse 70-7. Alabama, this is one game we did not talk about. They beat Eastern Illinois 56-0, another one of those cupcake games. BYU, the 26-14 win, we talked over Cincinnati. Utah, 51-47 over Kansas State. This game sounds like a barn burner. Like, it sounds like a whole lot of fun. Utah apparently had a big lead. Kansas State tried to fight back there at the end, and I think maybe scored 2 touchdowns late to get close. Maybe I'm wrong on the exact information there, but Kansas State did make a comeback attempt there at the end. So that game sounds like it had a little bit of pressure to it. That's probably what I should have watched because everything else was boring. Moving down to Miami, doubled up on Virginia Tech, 34-17. Vanderbilt slaughtered Kentucky, 45-17. USC losing to Oregon. Georgia Tech, I meant to talk about them. You guys know how much of a bandwagon fan I am of Haynes King and Brent Key and the rest of the Yellow Jackets. I think their run to the ACC championship game is now over. Pittsburgh instead, I think, has got an opportunity. Maybe that is this week. I don't know. Pittsburgh's got a chance, though. They could get in the ACC championship against, I assume it would be Miami. Maybe wrong there. We'll figure that out next week. We talked about Texas taking down Arkansas. Michigan took down Maryland 45-20. Tennessee, we talked about. Illinois, I think I told you guys last week, look out. Wisconsin might have something to say about this game. And they had a lot to say about the game. Wisconsin taking down Illinois 27-10. We talked about Missouri losing. Houston, one of the most confusing teams in the country. Some of the best jerseys in the country, but also very confusing, falling 17-14 to TCU. Tulane taking down Temple 37-13. And Arizona State with a 42-17 W over Colorado. Now, like I said, we're going to go to our last break, and then when we get back, we've got all these games coming up this week. Don't go anywhere.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
He shoots, and he scores!
Got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
Welcome back to Kickoff with Casey. We've just got a few things we're going to run through here. Friday night, we've got a lot of big games coming up on Friday night, including what I think is, Tennessee Vanderbilt's huge, but I think the biggest game of the week, especially in the SEC, is Texas A&M at Texas. I saw a few headlines on here saying that with a win, Texas can kind of argue their way back into the college football playoff. Aggies, please don't let that happen. Don't let that happen. Texas has shown that I don't think they deserve to be in the college football playoff. I hope the Aggies walk into Texas and get that W. Georgia at Georgia Tech. There always seems to be some sort of a fight or confrontation at that game. You got a chance for a close game, too. I know they lost last week, but Tech is not a bad team. And again, Haynes King, he's good at beating teams that it would be considered an upset when he's the underdog. He's hard to beat. Brent Key loves being the underdog coach. Ole Miss at Mississippi State, just a rivalry game there. I expect Ole Miss to win by about 30. That's an exaggeration, maybe 17-20. Indiana at Purdue. These are just Friday night games. Utah at Kansas. Temple at North Texas. I'll figure out how to say that here in a minute. Now, we move to the Saturday games. 2:30. Again, I think this is one of the biggest games in the country, and not just because I'm a Tennessee fan, but Vanderbilt at Tennessee. When's the last time Tennessee was ranked and Vanderbilt was the higher ranked team in this matchup? It could have been a lot sooner than I thought it was, but I feel like this is a huge game. before knowing that Vanderbilt was going to beat Alabama last year, I don't know. Like I get that that's one of, if not their biggest win as a program, regular season win. I don't know if this is not the biggest regular season game in Vanderbilt football history. I mean that. They've got a real chance at the college football playoff here. And there's a part of me that kind of feels like they deserve it. The teams that they've played well against, the teams that they've really beat up on, I think maybe they deserve it. But they've got a hard matchup. Tennessee, and again, I know I'm a Tennessee fan, but they don't completely suck. I mean, Vanderbilt's going to have to show up and play good football in Neyland, which is kind of hard to do for some other teams. So I think that game's at 2:30. Tennessee's 2.5-point favorites. That means Vegas has them pretty much straight up. Neyland's worth more than 3 points. Me and you both know that. But that game could be wild. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm actually, man, I forgot. I'm going to go see my mama on Thursday. I'm heading out for Thanksgiving to go to, I say Thursday, it's going to be tomorrow when y'all watch. I'm heading down to Alabama to go see my mama. So I'm not going to be here Saturday to watch it with Eric and them. I think he's going on vacation too. So good. I'll find a TV somewhere in Alabama to watch Vanderbilt versus Tennessee. But I think it could be one of the biggest games in the country and possibly the biggest game in Vanderbilt regular season history. Ohio State at Michigan, that one's always fun. There's a part of me that hopes Ohio State loses because they won the national championship last year, but because they lost to Michigan, they felt like there was this big dark cloud over their team, even though they were obviously better than everybody else. I just like to watch when other people aren't happy, and that's a terrible thing. I really need to get rid of that. Miami at Pittsburgh, that game could be huge. LSU at Oklahoma. I don't expect LSU to win this game, but if they do, it would not surprise me. And then the last one I wrote down, Alabama at Auburn. Again, Alabama's only 6.5-point favorites. Those games can go wild. Auburn versus Alabama. If you're the Auburn coach and you beat Alabama, you don't have to do much else. They're usually pretty happy with just that. Of course, they did fire Hugh Freeze before he even got to the game this year, so who knows? Now, on to the last little bit, lock of the week. It didn't take me long. I looked up and down the top 25 matchups, and I found that Oregon is on the road at Washington, and Oregon is 6.5-point favorites. Now, I know Washington has made its way into the top 25 a few times. Maybe it was just once. But I just, there's a part of me that just feels like, man, Oregon goes on the road here and they win this game by 17-plus points. I mean, 17-24 wouldn't surprise me at all. 6.5 is a crazy number to me. I think Oregon's one of the best teams in the country. And, I mean, I'm not just making that up. They were 7th before last week. So, that's my lock of the week. Oregon, 6.5 points over Washington. Like I told you, boys and girls, I'm going to be on the road. Got a long drive Thursday. I'm going to go see my mom. So, I got to find a TV down there in Alabama to watch on Saturday. But thank you very much for hanging out with me. I know I talked a little bit longer than usual today. I think that Tennessee-Florida second half really bothered me, so I just kept going. But I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me, watching today. Make sure you get some rivalry football in this Saturday, and we'll be back here next week to talk about it. So y'all have a good evening. Stay safe out there.